What's up, everybody? Circus here, coming at you with a state of the game. And I guess it's kind of an emergency state of the game, right, Rye? Because this past week,
Yeah.
Onomats, I think, just kind of shocked and surprised everybody. Maybe not shocked, but I mean, they won the power rankings one week by like 55 points, and the next week it was like 20 something points. Then all of a sudden they win by 100 points. That's
Yeah, we had a conversation 2 weeks ago. We were like, oh, if this happens again, this deck's like a definite tier 0. The
right.
following week it wasn't that bad. We were like, okay, Shiranui kind of stepped in with back row uh
Hmm.
to reestablish like, okay, no hey true nade, back row is the key. But then the third week, Automats turned around and were like, oh, back row's the key? Okay. And then they started playing back row as well. And all of a sudden, oh, hey, the best deck to beat Automats, the OTK Automats, is an Automats with trap cards.
Right.
Automats tier 0. Good job.
So, in case you guys didn't see some of our other videos, we do the power rankings every week, and they won by 100 points, which is unprecedented. They won by 55 points, which was unprecedented at the time.
They broke it twice. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Crazy.
their top 32 conversion rate, that means how many people enter the tournament and then make it into the top 32, was almost 50%. So if you played Onomats, you had a 50-50 shot of making the top 32. And then
Which is very different from what we used to see, because a lot of people were like, oh, that's more than like Shiranui used to be. I'm like, well, no. Shiranui had a lot of people enter, and then the conversion rate was always like 30, 20%. It was always really low. This is a lot of people entering, and almost half every tournament are actually making it to the top
yeah, and I'm going to
12
say it was
with that
slightly
deck.
over half, because then it was almost right at half, make it to the top 8. And
Yeah.
then 65% to the top 4. So, I
Oh
mean,
God.
and there were two
Yeah.
tournaments where Onomats took the top 4 altogether in both tournaments. One was Battle Step 7 and one was Ruby League. But the whole top 4 was Onomats in both of them.
Yeah. Battle Step 8 had 7 out of 8 automats
In
in
the
the top
top
8.
8. Oh, that's
Yeah.
disgusting.
So
So, I
the
mean,
next week's power ranking is going to be just as bad.
so no matter how you want to
uh,
define it, I would say this is a tier 0 meta, because a lot of people
100%.
get really upset. They're like, you can't use that definition. It's just, they're so dominant right now. How could you call it anything else? Okay, so
They're dominant in ranked play and in normal play too.
I was going to
So
bring that up. So KCGT, Reseline,
mhm.
always the best, coming up with the stats on that kind of stuff for us.
Yep,
Posted that. They kind of dominated that too as well, right?
they did. It was only them, and then like a couple of Thunder Dragons, a couple of Cyber Dragon, but overwhelmingly it was Automats.
Okay, so that's the state of the game right now.
Yeah.
It is what it is, and it's kind of boring. Like this, I picked this game that we're watching right now on stream because if you watch, I can actually show you real quick here. Rye has actually he's making a tier list of theme songs in the game rather than watching the
Uh,
actual game. Okay, because that's just where we are in the game.
did you know people didn't realize that our intro song is Officer Trudge's
Right? Yeah, they didn't realize
theme?
it was
Did you
from
guys?
the
People didn't know that. Surprise, YouTube! It's Officer Trudge. He has the best theme. Also
right.
voiced by Yami Yugi's voice actor in 5Ds. So there you go.
There you go. Now you know. Okay, so that's the state of the game. So how do we fix this, right? Or we don't fix it. How does
Yeah, we
Konami
don't
fix
fix it.
it? And what's
Yeah.
okay? So how long is this going to go on? Let's start with that. How long do you think this will go on for?
I personally believe that this will go on until either right before Worlds or right after Worlds when they decide to implement a ban list. I don't think we'll get an emergency ban list this
So
late into the
how
season.
how far away is that?
A month,
A
30
month?
days.
So at
Yeah.
least another month. Okay. So and then
At least. That's what I think. There could be an emergency. I don't know, but I'm going to go ahead and assume that there will not be
how
any
would
sort
they
of emergency.
implement an emergency ban list? I mean, obviously they just announce it, but what do you think it would be? Just like limiting something?
So I guess the first step is to understand exactly what happened, like what went wrong, which
Hmm.
we kind of got into in the last Rye report that we did,
Right.
with gimmick puppets not being strong enough, but then more importantly, Beetle coming out. The meta that we just left was actually a really good meta. It was very well
Right.
balanced. But the problem now is Automat's got access to a really strong boss monster that pretty much just destroyed Harpy Lady's chances of winning anymore, which it just breaks everything down. Harpies are going down, Resonators are going down. Shiranui kind of stood up because they're like, oh, we can play back row. But then Automats were like, oh, hey, I can play back row too, actually. And
Right.
then that just ruined everything even further because now the best way to beat the pure Automats is to play back row, but the best back row deck is
Is
Automats. So
Onomats,
then it was
not
like, oh,
Shiranui. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, oh, Shiranui was actually never the best. It was just the back row cards, and now we're gonna stick it in a real good deck.
Right.
So, the reason that this is happening is Onomata play. Onomata play is I like anime skills,
Hmm.
but I'm not a big fan of the consistency ones. I'm more a fan of like Territory the Sharks and stuff like that,
They're
where
real
it's
restrictive.
it's specialized, yeah.
Yeah.
But even in terms of the anime skills, look at Demon's Residence. You have to have this extra deck of Dark Synchro, dragon monsters, or I guess
Right.
just dragon synchro monsters. Doesn't have to be dark, but Crimson Resonator will lock you in for that. Um, the Onomats, they don't have any restrictions. So any level 4, any level 6, any level 8, or I should say rank 4, rank 6, rank 8, any of those that come out is indirectly Onomat support,
Right.
which is a scary thought when you think that they have a crazy consistency skill and they're able to every turn,
Just crank them out. Just
set up
crank
their
them out.
board.
Yeah.
So, they're because right now there's essentially 3 Onomat builds, right? There's the typical OTK Onomats that, we've known for a long time now.
Hmm.
There's a version that uses a bunch of trap cards, triple head, and a lot of traps. It doesn't really OTK, it's very slow. And there's a version that does the same thing, but instead of trap cards, you're playing a bunch of Forbidden Chalices, Book of Moons, Forbidden Lances, to
Okay.
just outpace your opponent rather than control them.
Okay.
Um, so because they already had like good Harpy matchups and stuff like that, but at least Harpies could kind of play around them, can be side deck them. Now you just can't. Now you can't do
Right.
anything
There's
because
non-targeting destruction.
yeah, they're able to do every single aspect of the metagame better than everybody. So then why wouldn't you just like play the mirror match and go from there, right? So I think a few things have to be done. Obviously, the Exabeetle into Rhino Bust was never an intended effect from Konami.
No, not at
that
all. Not at all.
that they should probably address that. They could very easily just go ahead and hard limit both of those to 1, and nothing would really be impacted other than the actual metagame. Thunder Dragons sometimes play Exabeetle,
Hmm.
but usually it's just Onomats. But I think at the end of the day, they're going to have to address Onomata play, because if we just get any other good broken level 6s or rank 6s, rank 4s, or rank 8s, Automats will always be able to summon that, and they'll always be able to consistently summon that because they can just put a card back and add whatever card they want to their
Right.
hand. You know what I
Right.
mean?
It's super consistent. Yeah. It's one of the best
It's extremely
consistency
consistent. Yeah.
skills. Yeah.
They need a restriction. It needs to be something like, oh, if you play this skill, you can only go into like number monsters, or how, because it's basically turn them into gimmick puppets. That's the only
Right.
way to ever balance it. Which
Okay.
would pretty much be the end of Onomats. They would not be able to play anymore under those restrictions.
Okay, so that's kind of
So
like the nerf approach, right? Now,
yeah.
we do have a mini box coming out
Hmm.
before Worlds, I would believe, right?
Hmm.
Could that do anything to right the ship?
I mean, it could, but it wouldn't be like anything Xseed related, because
Hmm.
any Xseed support that comes out, Automat can flex into. So it would have to be a synchro or a fusion or something like that mini box in order to power creep the game to the state where they're not tier 0 anymore. And it would have to be something that
Significant.
is hyper consistent. Yeah, we're talking like Dark Lord levels of consistent to really knock them down.
And would that be a good idea?
Well, if they want to release pendulums in a couple months, no, that's not going to work. So I think the only real answer here is that they made a huge mistake
Hmm.
with their. I thought Konami had like a big brain strategy with like nerfing Melody and Blue Eyes to nerf Blue Eyes, like it was such a sleight of hand
Right.
nerf. But I'm starting to think that they actually didn't intend to kill Blue Eyes. They intended to just slightly lower the
Slow it
power
down.
level, and they thought that would be it. But in reality, they took away the best card and didn't realize it. I'm starting to think that maybe they don't know what
They're not
exactly
playing
they're
4D
doing.
chess. They're playing checkers.
Yeah, they're playing
At best.
checkers, and they just got lucky with one of the hits. I was reading a comment, I think it was on the DLM website or somewhere, where someone was saying that this year we have only had one good, healthy metagame. And I sat down and thought, and I was like, oh wow, they're
That's
right.
true so far. Yeah.
They're right. We had the Noble Knight meta, which seemed like it would be cool, but then all of a sudden it was Noble Knight, Desperado, Blue Eyes, and you're like, oh god, this is awful. All 3 of these decks are just
Right.
impressive. I don't like this at all. And then we had the Blue Eyes and the Dark Lord meta, and I was like, oh god, it's getting worse. Like
Right.
this is not acceptable. And the only meta that we had that was healthy was the one that we just left with Harpies, Resonators, Automats were in there. They were
They were
they
a
were more
part of the
healthy.
meta, yeah.
Yeah.
And then one card, it's just amazing how one card can just
One
change the
card does that.
yeah.
Well, it's two factor. One card made them go to that automats that was like 40, 60 points ahead of everybody, right?
Right.
Um, what really pushed it over the edge, because people's response to that one card was play more back row. What
Right.
really pushed it over were all the Japanese players and like Grucius and stuff. They were practicing the control automats, which um, was an interesting idea at first, but then it became better and better and better. And it feels like every day the deck was just getting more and more powerful. And then KCGT comes along and they finally, the players just unleash it. And, it's like, oh God, this is actually pretty good. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's what really pushed it over into the tier 0 meta, just the continuous flexibility, the continuous
Mm-hmm.
evolution of the deck. Because when you look at previous decks that had crazy power rankings, really like the Noble Knight one was 40 points ahead or something like that.
Yeah, it was
But then
significant. Yeah.
immediately Desperado turned around and was like, okay, quarantine is now here. And they just fell back into their rightful place. You know what I mean?
Right.
The difference here is automats, people tried to counter it, and then they just kept evolving anyway. They didn't care. They just kept
They just
getting better and
absorb
better.
it, right? They absorb your
They
counter.
absorbed it and got better. It was insane to watch in real time because it was it was like watching 3 days of Casey Cup, but within 6 rounds. Round 1, this is what we saw. Round 2, this is what we saw. Round 3, all the sheer new install decks, they're gone. Automats ate them. Now automats are the ones stalling.
Right.
It's the wildest thing to have witnessed. And a lot of people watched the KCGT and started applying that to tournaments, and then bam, there you go.
Yeah.
Tier 0.
So this is where we're at. So we're stuck in an Onomat tier 0 meta.
Yeah.
We're thinking for at least another month, and the
Yep.
new box probably isn't going to do much.
No.
So we're just going to have to wait to sometime around Worlds.
They need to nerf this. This is getting to the point where they need to emergency nerf it, either the skill or Exabeetle specifically. Here's the thing: if you take out Exabeetle and Rhino Bus as an extension, what'll happen is I personally think the control mats will die as well, because now the Harpy matchup is going to be much more Harpy favored, because that matchup or that deck doesn't even play level 4s. They can't even play the Patriarch, which, by the way, they completely dropped. No one plays Patriarch anymore, but that deck doesn't play any level 4s, including Patriarch. So that version of the deck would not be playable because Harpies would come back in full force if Rhino Bus isn't around to stop them.
Right.
Um,
But what's the
and then the
likelihood?
meta would just like reestablish itself from there.
What's the likelihood of emergency nerf? We never know what they're going to do, but is it?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I'm gonna say extremely low. I
Yeah.
don't think they're willing to emergency nerf something.
When you got a whole month, right? I mean, just
Yeah,
let it play
because
itself out, right? I
it's
mean,
weird because it's like they only emergency nerf stuff that's like brand new released. Like
that's true.
Witchcrafter's
Yeah.
brand new released,
Six
emergency
Sams.
hit.
Six Sams.
Six
Remember
Sam,
they
yeah,
got one.
emergency hit. You don't really see him because there were times like remember Grass Shiranui was super broken and they didn't emergency nerf
That went for a long time. Dark Lords in whatever form would get nerfed, and then they just let the new dominant one just go for months. And
Star
then
Seraph Scepter Dark Lords, that was definitely when FA Hang On Ma came out, that was definitely warranting an emergency nerf. And that didn't happen.
right,
So it's hard to say. I think when decks are just at a certain age length, they don't really emergency hit them anymore.
right. So this probably another month then.
I would imagine, which
And then
is really unfortunate. I hope the mini box at least brings us something that will bring Onomats back to tier 1 at the very least instead of tier 0. Because if we continue every single week doing this, it's going to be awful. It's not going to be fun.
and then real quick before we get out of here, I know a lot of people are gonna say, you know what, Circus, right? I don't care. I play the ladder. This has nothing to do with me. What do you think?
Onomats are by far the best ladder deck right now, and you're going to see them more and more and more.
Because I think you were talking about on stream the KCGT. That's the ladder meta.
It was the ladder meta. You could play whatever deck you wanted, whenever you wanted. There was no restriction on it, and by far, Automats were the best deck. You may see a less optimized version. You're not going to see one that runs triple Book of Moon, but this deck don't need triple Book of Moon to destroy you. You know what I mean? Like they could easily play like so many other things. It's an extremely cheap deck. You can get it from the structure deck, and then you just start putting in all that random back row. That's the expensive part, right?
Right.
That's what's gonna You're going to see a lot more Onomats. I would not be surprised in the coming days if we don't see just Onomats dominate the popularity rankings. It's
Well,
Blue Eyes time.
yeah, we
It's
did
over.
that last week, right? The popularity
Yeah,
rankings, what's hot on
they
the
were
ladder.
already.
It was Blue Eyes, then Onomats, which we'd never
Yeah,
seen before. So they were already on a rise.
yeah. And I think
So
it's just going to get worse and worse. I think this affects everyone.
over the next
This is the
month, yeah.
Yeah, this is I don't know. It's weird because this is like the first time where it really feels like a true tier zero besides like Six Samurai, and that only lasted like a week of tier
Right.
zero. That was emergency nerfed really fast. After
Dark
it came
Lord's
out.
had a pretty good run in there, like
Yeah,
couple meta, like almost like a year or two ago.
yeah, but
They
Dark
had,
Lord's never made tier zero because by the time people caught on that they were good, nerfed. So then they were
right,
like, okay, you're just the best deck, but you're not the tier zero deck.
right.
This might actually, if this lasts a month, it will be the longest standing tier zero deck. And it's not only going to be in tournaments, it will be in ranked as well.
Well,
So there you go.
Because I think we said in the power rankings, this is the strongest deck for its meta. Okay.
Yes.
Not necessarily the strongest deck ever, but for the
Yeah.
meta that it's in.
Most arguments I hear against it being called tier zero is just people looking at every deck that ever released in Duel Links history
Like
and
E-Sabers,
comparing it
Dark
to that,
Lords,
yeah.
Cyber Angels.
Which is not a
you know.
fair comparison. You have to match the deck in its meta that it's in, you know?
Right.
Of course, full power Automat would never take on full power Dark Lord. No one is saying that. No one in their right mind.
Right.
But full power Dark Lord isn't here. Half power Dark Lord isn't here. A quarter power Dark Lord isn't here. They're all gone.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
the only thing, the competition just isn't good enough to take on Automat.
I was gonna say, you see that when you do those unlimited tournaments, right? We'll see people bring Onomats and they lose like full power share anywhere, or the fullest power we can do in the game still.
Yeah, or even Witchcraft. Last time we did it, Witchcrafter it was brutal. They literally cannot beat a Witchcrafter player. No matter what they do, they cannot beat Witchcrafter.
Right. So just keep that in mind. We're saying the strongest for the meta that we're currently in, the meta that they're in. So
which is still a weakened meta game. And this is the tragedy of being in such a weak meta game. You end up here.
Right. So our prediction, I guess, 1 month. You're thinking a month. Unless
I don't think there's going to be an emergency ban. I hope there is. Please, I want to be wrong on this. Please, please emergency ban list this shit. But I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, we're going to have to go like a full month. Like you said, the Star Seraph Dark Lords were like a pretty good indicator where they're like, we're in no hurry. This is destroying the game. We have less players, less viewers. Damn. We can go a month. It's no big deal.
No problem.
Yeah, that's what we're going to see here, unfortunately. So, all right, guys, we'll probably be talking about Onomats a lot over the next month. I'm sorry, but that's all there is. We'll try to highlight other things
Highlander tournaments, meme tournaments, they're coming, boys. We're going to be here. Come here. We'll save you.
Right, because I just want to show you one more time. Rye is, where'd we get on the theme list here? Looks like we got Carly at the top, Jack at the top.
All the
and Timothy at the top. Yep. So
did you know Bastion has a standard duelist as a theme? Like the ones that you auto duel?
Oh really?
Yeah, that's just
poor Bat. He's just a meme, right? That's why he's all the way at the bottom.
I guess I don't know anything about it. All I know is there's a main character in the series that is a playable character who is an auto duelist. So
yeah, he gets the standard theme. So yeah, that's make sure to check out the streams. They're definitely gonna be more entertaining and less gameplay, I would think. So
yeah, probably.
All right, guys, we're gonna get out of here. Let us know what you think of the state of the game as it stands right now. Hopefully you guys stick around for the next month because we're going to try to keep you entertained the whole time. But let us know what you think in the comments below. We're going to get out of here, but you should get in the Discord because it's free. The tournaments are free and the new player help is free. I'm Circus. That's Rye.
Farewell.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
Don't say it like that. A month.
No,
I'll see you when you come back in a month, subscribers.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.